Hello, and welcome to the Gimme All Your Wrestling podcast. This is the first stream we've done. Oh no, we did the WrestleMania reaction stream. This is the first stream, the first time I've seen. Holy monkey! I've only just realised the first time I've seen Andy in this country since I last saw him in America. Is this the first time I've? Yeah. Whoa. Sorry, I digress. We're going to debate CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. Should they be back in wrestling? Have they ruined their legacies by returning to AEW? That's what we're going to talk about. Andy's here. I'm excited about it. Sam's here. I'm also excited about that. But me and him have got like 4 hours of SmackDown to do. But that's beside the point. Let's do this. Let's debate some stuff. Yeah, I haven't figured out an intro yet. Oh no, what am I going to do? Let's do Darby Allin.
God, I just listened to this whole podcast. It was terrible. I feel like my ears are gonna bleed.
What'd you say? This is Darby Allin, and you're listening to Give Me a Whole Yeah podcast.
There you go. Nice little intro there from Darby Allin. Talking about Darby, I went back and I watched a very important Darby Allin match this past week, which is actually what directly inspired this stream. It was a match that Darby Allin did with Jeff Hardy, since Jeff Hardy signed with AEW, signed with his brother, and then obviously had some legal issues. There was some driving issues. I'm putting it very, very likely here. We'll go into what those issues were in this stream. We are going to talk about two polarizing figures, two very popular figures in CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. Should they have come back to AEW originally? Is their return to AEW and the prospective return, Jeff Hardy's definite most recent return last week to AEW, which is actually a thing, and CM Punk's potential but very likely return to AEW. Have they ruined their legacies? Have they ruined their vibe by coming back and doing this? Is it time we let go of these figures that are so popular and so ingrained in not only wrestling but pop culture? I have brought two of my favorite people in to talk about this with me, my co-host Sam on SmackDown and Andy Spores. Now, Andy, we're going to start with you because I haven't seen you since we were in America for WrestleMania. How are you doing, mate? What's going on in your life at the moment?
Yeah, nice to see you again, and it was lovely to see you in person for quite a long time in comparison to Cardiff. So really good to see you guys again. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Really loved watching your reaction video that you did with Tom as well. That was brilliant watching and reliving some of the memories that you guys were going through. It was my wife's birthday today, so I've been spoiling my wife. So happy birthday to Jenny. If she's still watching this, she's probably sleeping because we obviously still have a 8 weeks today, I think 9 weeks today. So I think she's sleeping upstairs. So great. And Tom's in as well by the looks of it as well. So great to see some people already joining in. But really excited to talk about two people here that at different times in my wrestling fandom have probably been quite high up the list of favorites. Jeff Hardy in particular, I'm excited to talk about on the basis that he was probably, him and Chris Jericho, I had posters on my wall when I was young. So back when posters were a thing, I don't know if they do that anymore. I don't hang around kids' bedrooms or anything like that. So no idea.
I'm still really ill, but or at least a little bit ill. But that tickled me. That popped me. Not being in kids' bedrooms, but that whole thing. Sam, how are you, mate? What have you got going on, and how are you feeling in advance of kicking off this stream that we're doing in advance of our first SmackDown back after WrestleMania as well?
Yeah, we've all been ill, haven't we? It's why we weren't here last week, because we all came back from LA. And every single one of us came down with a dodgy chest. The jet lag was bad enough, but having that man flu and that cough and whatever that was, It killed me off for again. I've been at work all week, which I work from home, so I didn't have to go far. But it still slowed me down a bit, and I've had a really hectic week as well. So it's been. I feel okay today, but yeah, it's still like the vapors are lingering of whatever the hell that was. And but yeah, I'm happy to be. It's good to be like last Friday. There was no parallel version of me in any universe that did the stream last Friday. But I feel like every parallel version of me is doing it today because they're so keen to get back on it. So, but yeah, it's nice to be back. It's all just so surreal because everything was about mania, and now I'm like, what do I do with my life?
Yeah.
I suppose there's next year. It's like,
yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I mean, the topic of this stream, the reason I brought you guys here today, as Andy said, what attachment do you have to CM Punk and Jeff Hardy? The idea is, for people that don't know, what we're going to do is we're going to tackle one at a time. We're going to tackle Jeff Hardy, then we're going to tackle CM Punk. But obviously, bringing you here, I'd like to know your attachment to both characters. What kind of significance do both of these characters and their respective legacies hold for you, Sam?
Right. Are we just discussing them both together? Because it's very different.
We're going to discuss them both together now, and then we're going to go individual.
Well, I agree with you both. They're both very important to me in different eras. Like when CM Punk left WWE and a load of stuff went down, I took a break from wrestling. I was fatigued. Jeff Hardy's like your dad's mate, who's just always kind of been around. A nice guy. He gets himself into trouble now and then, but he's got a good heart, so you're always happy to see him again when he's on the mend. So I think they're both very important figures, I think, to my wrestling fandom, but I have very, very specific and unique thoughts about them both. And I think the two words that will define all the things I say about them both are kindness and responsibility, I think so, but we'll come back to that.
Okay, well, yeah, well, that's interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you my thoughts, and then I want to ask you guys individually. We're going to tackle Jeff Hardy first. I think Jeff Hardy has just come back. This is a hot topic in wrestling. Jeff Hardy's been back for just under a week now. Jeff Hardy returned to AEW last week to help out his brother. He is rumored not to be doing so many bumps because he's still recovering at the moment. But obviously, there was there was an issue when he first came to AEW. There was a little bit of a communication error between himself and WWE about how he left. Whether he was under the influence, and that there was a little bit of miscommunication there, which obviously led to Jeff being in AEW in the first place. Things looked good for Jeff when he first came in. He was doing big spots, but you can see with Jeff now that he's in a lot of pain. Certainly in my from my perspective, I can see that, and obviously as someone that struggles to walk at the best of times, you can see little limps and things in people. I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, of course, but certainly you can see that Jeff is experiencing the wear and tear now of years and years of just entertaining us, and that there is a wider question about some of his abuse issues and whether they are, whether it's about self-medicating and trying to cope. So the first portion of this is going to be discussing, has Jeff Hardy damaged his legacy by being in AEW in the first place, and more specifically, returning to AEW to compete? Because I think a lot of comments seem to be, we want Jeff to be happy and healthy, and that seems to be the general consensus. But, I was speaking to Emma, actually, my partner, who's in the chat the other day, and I was like, oh, Jeff Hardy's back. That childlike enthusiasm. And Emma was like, yeah, but, he got done for drunk driving. He could have killed someone, and I was like, it was like an automatic, like, oh, yeah, hang on, these superheroes that we, that are our child, sort of our childlike memories and stuff that we associate with them. Actually, yeah, there's a darker side to this. So, let's I'm gonna put this to you guys now, not just because I realize I'm about to put an image of Jeff up. It's not because I'm gonna just give it over to you guys. I don't want people to see you talking, but I'm just for context, we are going to be talking about Jeff Hardy, and I want to give the mic. I want to give the conversation points over to Andy first as our special guest. The direct question there, I know I've just waffled on. Has Jeff Hardy damaged his legacy in AEW? Does it, some of those memories you talked about at the beginning of this stream, is any of that tarnished by still seeing Jeff actively compete and damage his body in that way, Andy?
Okay, so it is quite, this is quite a big subject to break down. So it might be worth kind of just starting at the beginning, I guess, and then getting to that specific question. For me, Jeff Hardy was, when I was first getting into wrestling, I remember I got a double VHS. I don't even remember, they were massive. You get 2 VHS cassettes in like a big case. And I think I believe it was WrestleMania 2000. And I remember vividly rewinding constantly to watch the Hardy Boys match. I'm pretty sure I'm right in that one, and just being he was the reason why I kept watching wrestling. And then you'd swap stickers in the playground, and I was always hoping to get the Jeff Hardy like shiny or whatever, or the Hardy Boys logo, etc. And then that kind of like slowly, like, he was always the person that people kind of, I'm not related to, but we're like, oh my God, he's amazing. He's the guy people would talk about because he'd just do such ridiculous like stunts off the top of ladders or cages or whatever. And then for ages, he was always like the tag team guy. And then when he went on his singles run and people were like, oh, he's starting to get over on his own right. And he was such a popular champion, even if he was never champion for too long. And people really kind of enjoyed that. And then he had his feud with CM Punk, funny enough, that we'll come on to him later. But then it all started to sort of fall apart a little bit when you started growing up a little bit and hearing about certain discretions and that he'd violated wellness policies. And then more recently, you start seeing that some of these people that you maybe thought were heroes when you were younger aren't necessarily infallible. They do have their weaknesses, their foibles, etc. And Jeff Hardy, unfortunately, is one that is substance abuse or alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, and led to some mistakes that really could have been unforgivable. At the end of the day, yes, he may not have killed anyone or hurt anyone seriously or anything like that, but it's not to say it couldn't have happened. I don't think joining AEW per se damages his legacy. I think any more transgressions that he may do in his personal life does that instead. AEW just happens to be his current home. I think some of the comments that come through is, some of it is his own doing, and unfortunately, like substance abuse, it is such a serious topic that it is a disease, and unfortunately, like it just basically becomes an example for what not to do. And it becomes a cautionary tale for any wrestlers that are kind of coming up. And it's interesting that he had that match with Darby Allin, because Darby Allin, the way he kind of throws his body around, might end up needing the same kind of painkillers that Jeff Hardy kind of had to turn to. And for me, some of it, unfortunately, I do feel a little bit of guilt towards Jeff Hardy because of being such a fan of seeing those high spots, and wanting to see them. And there is that kind of tinge of guilt for me, because did he turn to those kind of things to numb the pain of the things that he did inside the ring? And if so, then you can't help but feel sorry for the guy, because all he was trying to do was entertain the masses, and he did for a long time. But I think for now, maybe it's time for him to have one very short run in AEW before moving on, and just concentrate on himself and his family before it's too late.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Andy, and thank you for those thoughts. One of the things that I'm particularly interested in, in asking you, in relation to that is, what are your hopes then? What is the best case scenario we can expect from a Jeff Hardy run. People are talking about him being in tag matches and three-way tag matches, so he doesn't have to do a lot of work. Are we expecting something massive from this? What do you want to see from Jeff Hardy's final run in AEW, and can he salvage any of this? Any of the negative perceptions against him that are sort of naturally there, whether it's in the back of people's minds or people are being very vocal about it. Some people in the wrestling community are very, very happy to see Jeff back. And some people, are saying, what people are saying in the comments, he shouldn't be allowed back. And this is he needs to stay at home with his family. So Andy, what are you hoping for this final run from Jeff?
I think, as I said, kind of towards the end of that ramble that I was going on, I think this needs to be a short goodbye. Give him a chance to kind of like do his last kind of couple of things, maybe even go to the Wembley show. But I definitely think it's one of those things like not a singles run. I think, a tag with either Matt or another person as well, just to keep it safe in terms of he's not having to burden all that kind of performance on his own. But I definitely think it's it is time for him to pass the torch and time for him to take it easy. But he definitely deserves that goodbye. But I don't think this run is in any jeopardy of tarnishing it. As I said before, I think that's all on him. He is one of my greatest memories of at WrestleMania 33, seeing the Hardy Boys come out and seeing the pop at WrestleMania in Orlando. There was grown men practically crying, seeing them coming back and like celebrating like a World Cup final goal had gone in, and that was amazing. But then you also have to think on the flip side, he's also been part of one of the most embarrassing wrestling moments when he was in TNA against Sting. So you can see the highs and the lows of Jeff Hardy, and for this run in particular, I really just want him to get through it. He doesn't have to be wrestling every week. I know before he kind of left, he was doing that and he was putting his body through quite a lot again. He needs to realize that, this is his final chance. This is his final run. Don't squander it. Take it. Don't phone it in, but you don't have to go all out like you used to. You're not the same. There's younger people to kind of pick up the pace. Find something that's comfortable, find what you're looking for to help your mental state more than anything, and find what you need to say goodbye to the wrestling industry in terms of in-ring, and get ready to coach the next generation if that's what you want to do, or if he wants to paint and play music, which I know is one of his other passions or other side of him, then go do that. But time to say goodbye for me, I think.
Yeah, and before we bring Sam in, a couple more questions on what happens afterwards for Jeff and the wider wrestling community. Can you see Darby Allin going the same way? Not learning from Jeff Hardy's mistakes, and what really can the wrestling industry and young wrestlers learn from Jeff in terms of how to conduct themselves physically in the ring? And what would you hope is left for Jeff post wrestling, really?
I think there's something to be said for learning from the mistakes, and I really hope that's the kind of thing that Jeff can talk to the younger generation at AEW, and even if he found his way back to WWE or in the Performance Center, etc. I think he just needs to put himself in that cautionary tale of, this is what I did, and maybe I wish I hadn't done it, and maybe not doing the Swanton Bomb every night and landing very heavily onto my back, etc. And just really kind of like sharing his experiences so people like Darby Allin don't go down it. Like at the end of the day, I think adrenaline junkies are always going to be looking for that next hit, and I don't mean that in any other kind of way, but adrenaline junkies do it because it gives them the rush that gets them through. And that seems to be what Darby Allin's all about. But he also needs to make sure that he has a long life and can kind of go through that. And if Jeff can steer him through and be some sort of example now to say, maybe don't do that every night or kind of save that for the big spots, then great. But Jeff Hardy was never a big talker. Like, that wasn't why people tuned in to watch him. It was because of what he did in the ring. He's a shining example of, like, of being charismatic without having to grab a microphone all the time. So how can he impart that kind of wisdom and knowledge onto the locker rooms of today? I think that's where his place can be. I don't think he's the kind of guy who could maybe be a coach, but certainly someone who could pick up a phone or text message for the younger generation and say, come on, like, you need to have a word of yourself because you're going down the route I did, that sort of thing. Maybe just more of like a sort of agony uncle, as it were. As long as he's like sober and in a good state mentally as well.
It's a good point you make. And finally, for you, Andy, is Jeff Hardy a surefire Hall of Fame, or is that the is that the best we can hope for Jeff? Is a Hall of Fame induction, and again, the chance to become an example in the same way. And I'm not drawing a direct comparison, but like how Jake the Snake has done, Jake Roberts has done in his later years. Is that what we can expect from Jeff, a WB Hall of Fame induction, and potentially the opportunity to coach and mentor, as you said, in your previous answer?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if not, I don't even think it's necessarily a case of like, is he going to be a Hall of Famer, but how many times? Like, I personally think he could be a 2-time Hall of Famer, one for his singles run and one for the Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys will go down as one of the most popular tag teams of all time. And Jeff Hardy himself will go down as one of the most popular people, even at his back end of WWE's run, but, before that kind of story broke where he walked out on a house show or something, etc. He would get the loudest pop of the night in most arenas that he went to. He was an extremely popular champion. I would be shocked if he doesn't go into the Hall of Fame a minimum of once. But the only thing that will stop that happening is Jeff Hardy himself. If he continues to go and and have DUIs and things like that, then that's going to get in his way, and WWE won't want people kind of like idolizing him. But let's face it, there are some questionable people already in there, so I don't think it's like a deal breaker. But should anything worse happen, then that could jeopardize it. But for me, I think he's a 2-time Hall of Famer for WWE.
Yeah, I think so. And thank you, Andy, for your wonderful reflections there. Lovely to hear about, again, that how your sort of thoughts have changed and developed about Jeff, and obviously you've done some thinking yourself about Jeff's legacy, as not just in AEW but beyond that. So thank you very much for those thoughts. Bringing in Sam now for a different perspective before we move on to CM Punk. Jeff Hardy, again, looking at some of Andy's comments there, obviously so monumentally popular, such a wonderful figure for our youth, like we said, when we started this. But again, it's a problem when you are these issues keep happening to Jeff. And my question for you, Sam, is: can you have empathy for Jeff Hardy, as a journalist, as you are, and who works in wrestling and gaming and other forms? Can you have empathy for Jeff Hardy for these, obviously, because like Andy said, a lot of this stuff can maybe be attributed to medication and things like that, and pain management, etc. Can you have empathy for Jeff Hardy at this time? Or are you steadfast in the, he needs to help himself kind of thing? What are your thoughts on that, Sam?
I have a ton of empathy for anybody suffering from substance abuse issues, especially if they've come across those doing the way Jeff has, by being in an industry where he was forced to keep going the extra mile and to do this and to do that, and before you know it, he's taking the painkillers, and he's clearly got an addictive personality anyway, and things like that. So I'm really sympathetic to Jeff, in that sense. But at the same time, here's where my sympathy and my empathy runs a bit dry, which is when you have a skinful to drink and make the choice to get behind the wheel of a car. That is when I I don't care if you're my own son, my own brother, my own dad, or anything like that. I'm shopping you to the police if you do that, or I'm putting the fear of God into you. I don't mean like the literal God of that people believe in, but I will do whatever I have to do to not make sure you don't do that again, even if you hate me for it. So that's where I struggle. And I don't think you can just go, "Oh, woe is me! This happened, that happened." No. You made a conscious decision to do that. Everything before that, I'm sympathetic towards. I can't really empathize because it's never really happened to me, and I've never had an issue with substance abuse, so I can't speak and I won't judge anybody who does. But it's that car thing for me that is the sticking point. It is the thing I struggle with. But I agree with everything Andy said, but I do. Has Jeff tarnished his legacy? Yeah, probably. But I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel. I have hope. I have a faith in him that there's a place for him in the industry beyond wrestling. I do believe he might be on his final run, as Andy said. I feel like I'm at a point with Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy as well, where I'm kind of like, thanks for the memories, boys. You've got nothing else to prove. Your place in these halls of fame is assured. I am ready to say goodbye to them and thank you for your service. And I think Jeff, there's other things he could be doing, but ultimately I care very much, and I hope he's safe. I hope he's happy, and I also think that it's a great opportunity for him to be the cautionary tale and be an advocate for that, and say, look, if you do this, it can go to here, to here, to here. Let me help you learn from some of my mistakes. You're going to make a ton of your own mistakes, but here's how you can avoid these ones, and we can, make the industry a safer and happier place. But yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. There's a wider question before we move on, because it does tie on nicely to the CM Punk question. What is it, Sam, that you think brings these people back, keeps them coming back year on year? Jeff's got to be in a lot of pain. I believe you can see it in the way that he moves. You can see it in the way Matt moves, even, and countless wrestlers that are working injured, like an addiction in itself. So I'm gonna put it to you directly. What is it that you think keeps Jeff Hardy coming back, Matt Hardy coming back, and not being able to say, right, this is a good time for me to leave it. This is the time for me to hang up the boots and let my legacy be what it is, because, like I say, if Jeff had finished up after that last, issue, we would have still, loved Jeff Hardy for what he was and what he'd done, even in recent years. But obviously that DUI is probably hanging over his head. So is this Jeff Hardy in his own head with a chance at redemption to make his last run something meaningful? And a wider question, I know there's a bunch here, what is it that you think has kept Jeff coming back and obviously CM Punk coming back as well, and not being able to leave it alone? The wrestling bug keeps on biting, etc.
I think the wrestling bug, it's like anything you do, any art that you do to a high standard. If you are one of the best in the world at something, you are going to become addicted to it. Let's take people who aren't like famous rock stars or wrestlers, people like us. Why do we do some of the things we do? Like if I write something and I read the comments and people are like, this was a great read, I get that hit of dopamine. If I sell a short story, I get that hit of dopamine. Or if I get a good review, I get that again. Imagine you're a rock star on stage. I imagine you're playing to those crowds, and you feel that feeling, and then you go backstage and you have to go back to normal, boring life for a bit. No wonder a lot of these guys sometimes turn to some of the things they turn to. You've got to keep that going. It's just human to do that, to seek that, and to seek it in other places. And it's the same with wrestling. Eddie Edwards told me the other day when I was talking to him, the wrestler for Impact, he said wrestling is a sickness. He goes, and we were talking about how the fans get it and the wrestlers get it, but the wrestlers get it times 100. And when you're someone like Jeff Hardy and you are such an iconic and an important part of the industry and wrestling history, yeah, you are a rock star in the same sense that anyone else is, and you are going to go looking for those highs elsewhere. And then when you're hurting yourself and you're putting these painkillers in you, it's a cocktail that is going to lead a lot of people down that path. And Jeff's not the first. Let's not pretend he is. Other people have gone down these paths too. That's what it is. This is an addiction, and when you are one of the best in the world at doing something, you're going to feel that even more keenly than anybody else. So it's a case of being aware of that and having mechanisms in place to help these people from going down those roads if we can. And I think Jeff Hardy can be a big part of that. The only place he loses me is when he gets behind the wheel of a car. That's it.
Yeah. And as far as I'm aware, that's not an option for Jeff now for many years. Thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to bring you guys back on screen now before we segue into our next conversation point. I want to be very clear. I'm not making direct comparisons between Jeff Hardy and CM Punk. I believe they've both had an issue with their legacy in different ways. We're going to talk about CM Punk in a minute, but I think Jeff Hardy is one of those examples, very much like Jake the Snake, just to summarize, that can be a beacon of real hope for people that make mistakes. You can make mistakes and you can come back from them. And that's what we're talking about here. Is Jeff has an opportunity now to help the next generation, to motivate, to inform, to support, and he won't be remembered, while those things are a part of his life, just like Jake Roberts' addiction, is a part of his life, etc. And there's millions and millions of people and other examples in sports entertainment that those addictions are part of their life. However, it doesn't have to define them. And I think Jeff now, this is, I'm actually more keenly attuned into this run than I was into his wonderful, WWE run and the WWE run, that you mentioned coming back after WrestleMania, because this now is where Jeff can really cement what he does, his last moments, in the similar way that Sting has done. Sting, I think, has really, really done well in managing his legacy, in putting himself across in a way that doesn't get in the way of other talents and really helps the next generation. And that's what I'm hoping for Jeff Hardy. I don't know if you have any sort of final thoughts on that, either of you, for the Jeff Hardy portion of this.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be a great role for him. I think what could really, really help Jeff is, I don't want to make any assumptions. I know he's got kids. He's got a wife and he's got loads of things in his life to be thankful for and to go to bat for, to keep him on the straight and narrow. But if he could be given another purpose, another role to put, to do good, that could give him a nice new lease on life. That could replace, the desire to go out drinking or to take anything like that, because let's be honest, we all get that same hit of dopamine from charity, from altruism, from helping other people. It's a real thing, and it can sometimes be even more addictive. So if he can kind of refocus into that when he's done with his last wrestling run, that'd be a great way to give him a happy ending, really, I think, in this story, which is what he deserves, despite his mistakes. And I'm not going to keep lambasting him for that, because I've done it already.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, any final thoughts there?
I as always, I agree with everything that Sam says, to be honest. I think we're very in tune most of the time when it comes to wrestling opinions, which kind of makes for dull viewing, I guess, if you're looking for but no, I think we kind of, all of us are really in the same boat as the majority of wrestling fans. I think Jeff Hardy's one of those people, even though he's made mistakes, and yes, they are almost unforgivable in the sense of what could have happened. But universally, people just wish him well. Like, just they don't want him to kind of like keep making the same mistakes. They want him to get it together and just be healthy. And I don't think, if you read on Twitter, the majority of people are the same until maybe the last one. I think the last one was the kind of the stretching it when he got behind the wheel of a car. But in terms of moving forward, I think there's a wonderful story they could tell where Jeff Hardy kind of wants to manage Darby Allin, but Sting can kind of be like, well, actually, I've seen Jeff Hardy at his worst. Like, everyone's seen it on there. Like, and then there could be a little bit of a battle between them in terms of like Jeff Hardy's the daredevil side of Darby, whereas like Sting's a very theatrical side of him. So which one kind of wins over? It is a kind of cool storyline they could do where neither person really needs to take any big bumps or anything unnecessarily. And it's kind of one nice passing of the torch at some point as well, maybe to Darby. And I think that's the kind of role that he can fulfill before, you know, eventually going to WWE's Hall of Fame. I'm sure he will be welcomed with open arms when that time comes, as will Matt. No matter what both of them have done, I think they're still beloved by the WWE universe and the wrestling universe as a whole. And they're both made mistakes, but they're human at the end of the day. And as Sam said, we can't keep lambasting them. Let's just hope and pray that they don't make any serious mistakes that almost happened this time.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, all the best to Jeff Hardy. Very excited in a lot of ways for his AEW return. Another person, lads, that is generating a great deal of excitement this week is one Mr. Phil Brooks, CM Punk. There is a heavy amount of rumors that he is willing to work with the Elite, and he will be returning to AEW post haste, certainly in the next few months, and hopefully in time for a Wembley Arena show. So this is very different. You know, CM Punk has been straight edge. This conversation, and this is why I wanted to have it, is not about substance abuse. It is not about addiction issues and overcoming those. This is about a guy who came back with all the fanfare in the world, deservedly so, and fell victim to what I would argue, and this is potentially a contentious issue, and I'm just making people aware that we will address comments and stuff at the end of this. I'm going to make time to do that, so please do stick with us as we debate this, because we'll be doing comments at the end. But I going back to my point, I think that CM Punk is a victim of his ego. And I think the issue that he had in WWE was the same, and I think the issue he's had in AEW is the same. He has all these fans and all this support, but I think certainly, and this is where my fandom is here. I'm not approaching this from a journalistic standpoint. I want to be clear about that. I think he just wants more and more, and he wants control, and I think there's a real issue with power dynamics in CM Punk, and that's my personal opinion. And I think that is why, obviously, this, his wonderful return to AEW was scuppered, because there was an issue with how he felt things were working, and obviously WWE had, he had his problems with WWE as well. So the question comes back to, and I need to change the banner there, I do apologize, has CM Punk damaged his legacy in AEW? And this is slightly different again, because whereas people questioned whether Jeff Hardy should have even gone to AEW in the first place, even though it was obviously right for Jeff at the time, I don't think anybody questioned whether CM Punk going to AEW was a good move. But I would question, and this is where I'm going to hand over to you guys, Andy first, and then Sam. Could we have possibly predicted what happened? Could we have possibly predicted Brawl Out and the massive, however many month gap it is now since we've last seen CM Punk on our TV screens, after arguably, next to Bray Wyatt's return at Extreme Rules, the best wrestling return, one of the best wrestling returns of all time. So let's start with Andy on this one. Quite simply, has CM Punk damaged his legacy in AEW in any form? And we'll start with you, and then go to Sam, and I will, just for professionalism, stick a picture of Phil on the screen there.
Short answer. Whole yeah, you could have predicted this was going to happen. I mean, CM Punk has prior in terms of speaking his mind. publicly, and his most famous thing will go down as the pipe bomb promo sat at the top of the he sat in an AEW ring there in the same pose that he sat in for what I think will go down as his defining moment and contribution to the wrestling industry. Again, to rewind, similar to Jeff Hardy, I was and still am a big fan of CM Punk. I went on a stag do dressed as CM Punk. There are photos of me with kind of fake tattoo sleeves and a lip ring and hair slicked back and stuff like that with in that pose with the microphone. I was a massive CM Punk fan. I thought he revolutionized that kind of era within WWE. The Money in the Bank event where he left with the title completely like pulled me back in to wrestling when I was maybe starting to get a little bit jaded. And then when he kind of left properly and kind of took his ball and then eventually came back to fanfare in AEW, which was well deserved. It was awesome to see him back. But I personally don't blame CM Punk, because I think when you hire CM Punk, you hire Phil Brooks as a person. And quite frankly, as hard as it is to say, I actually think this blame for the whole situation lies with Tony Khan as the owner and manager and person who runs AEW. The situation could easily have been avoided by not giving someone a loaded mic when they're as pissed off as he was. He should have had that conversation with him before he went in front of a bunch of journalists and chewed out colleagues, etc. Any kind of manager worth his salt would have known what was coming. Yet he sat there and said nothing and almost pandered to him throughout his kind of diatribe. Personally speaking, I think what should have happened is they should have been grown-ups about it. They should have been locked in a room and told, you need to thrash this out for the good of AEW. We're all here for the same purpose. And quite frankly, if you have that much stock and you want him to be one of the faces of your promotion, you need to make sure that you get the best of him, but also know how to manage the worst of him. And this situation was horribly managed, quite frankly. And there are always going to be egos when there's people, when there's wrestlers involved. There has been as long as time. Hulk Hogan, case in point, had a massive ego. Shawn Michaels had a massive ego. Bret Hart has a massive ego. But they all were managed in a way that got the best out of them, and they would be happy to do business at the end of the day. The same cannot be said for this situation unless they can get people talking and be grown-ups. And I'm sure Sam, who I'm going to pass the mic over to here, is going to say something very similar.
Yeah, like again, we talk about this regularly, don't we, guys? Like we were talking, like I think I even had a rant about this today over WhatsApp, didn't I? I think. I agree, Andy. I think. Look, I think I have a little bit more sympathy with him, mainly because there does appear to me, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But but I'm not alone in this view. It appears to me that there can sometimes be a bit of a clicky, a bit of a click in AEW. You're either one of the cool kids, you're on board with a certain vision, or you're not. And I also think a couple of people, I'm not going to mention any names, and I'm not going to be drawn on it if anybody questions it either. I also think it's, there's also an element of when Punk turned up, he became the biggest star in the company overnight. Like, I don't care who your favorites are. I don't care, if someone else, if you think someone is a bigger star. When CM Punk turned up, it became the CM Punk show in many ways. And that is going to annoy people who have, who thought they might have been the DNA of this overnight. And I can see why some people might have been excited at first, and then that wore off when they realized they were no longer number one. This is just my opinion. I don't need anyone to agree with me. Let's be honest about Punk. With all that aside, he's clearly a nightmare to work with. Sorry, it's that simple. Where I think there are other people who can be difficult backstage at AEW. I think he's been probably the worst. And it's like you say, Andy, he's got priors. No matter where this guy goes, he falls out with people. We all know people like that. We've all worked with these people who just cannot get on with anybody. They fall out with every company they ever work for. It's never their fault. It's always someone else's fault. We see those people. We've all come across them. They can be cancers to whatever industry they work in. But here's the thing. It doesn't stop them being talented. And it doesn't stop them being valuable. Like when when the brawl out happened, I was angry at everybody. I feel like storming someone's locker room and all that, even if they've just called you out in public and all that. And don't get me wrong, he was out of order completely at that press conference. Here's the thing: I'll be as objective as I can. I am going to slag off everybody in this instance. And one wrong doesn't make a right, and one right doesn't make a wrong, and blah blah blah. Like if you did something bad, I'll call you out for doing something bad. I don't care why you did it. Bad is bad. But when it comes to Punk, all these things. I was angry at him as a fan, furious with him, and I was furious with the other guys. But do you know what I wanted more than anything in that situation? I wanted them all to figure out a way to resolve it and work together, because this could be a great angle. They're all a talented bunch of guys. The fans deserve them all to work together. The wrestling industry would be a worse place without all of them, and it already has been without him. All I want, and I think I speak for a lot of fans, because I'm not taking sides. I think all of them deserve a figurative slap. All I want is them all to figure this out and be grown-ups, because it's part of life is not getting on with people and disagreeing with people. And I feel like there is some hope now. I feel like we've got the Elite back. It's nice to see them again. I feel like we've got the old Kenny Omega back. I'm really happy about that. I'm hoping they've learned a lesson. And if you don't think they need to learn one, that's fine. I don't care. Don't bring it to my door. But when it comes to Punk, he's always going to be him. He might even do this again. And it doesn't make it okay. But I'm kind of hoping that the frighteners are up him enough now for him to play nice, and for other people to play nice. But has he tarnished his legacy? Yeah, because before that we were all cheering his name. We were all shouting CM Punk, CM Punk. I don't see anybody doing that now. I think he's annoyed a lot of people. It'd be great just to have them all back and working together again, but it might be too late. It might be. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong about a lot of stuff. But I have hope.
Yeah, I mean, I have hope too. Again, the first part of our conversation, Jeff Hardy ended up on a hopeful note. And, I believe, again, there is potential for hope for this. And obviously some lovely comments from you guys as well, which we'll get to a few of those at the end. But as we summarize, I'll go back to Andy. Similar question to the Jeff, when we were talking about Jeff Hardy and what's next for him and what the best case scenario is. What's the best case scenario? What can CM Punk do now to really cement his legacy as one of the greatest of all time? Because again, I think people are calling that stuff into question, and I think people have been calling it into question ever since the UFC stuff, and that's a very personal and fan-based opinion, and I'm aware of that. But for people have called CM Punk's greatness into question for many years now. So, in terms of what we can expect and what you want for CM Punk's return, if it does indeed happen, and the best case scenario, Andy, what is that for you?
I would say there's kind of two aspects to my answer. Really, is this return or anything needs to be the catalyst for AEW to sort the backstage stuff out. This can be the kind of like thing that when actually that should never happen. We need policies and management in place that can handle that. And can kind of get ahead of it ever happening again. And unfortunately, sometimes you just have to learn from your mistakes and put that down as to what this was. So in terms of that, he can be a big part of of the backstage stuff. But moving forward for CM Punk himself, this might sound really harsh, but would you guys actually ever consider him to be in the breath of greatest of all time? I would say he's very, very good, and I think he had one of the biggest moments of wrestling. But I don't think I could call him one of the greatest of all time in the sense of what he's done for the industry. That being said, I think there's a lot of money on the table when it comes to the Wembley Stadium show and being involved there. I think AEW will be very keen to have as many big hitters as they possibly can for that show. And CM Punk is absolutely one of those kind of big names that they could get onto the show. I think there's a way of spinning it into having a very successful feud with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. But, moving forward, I think it's time, and I think he was starting to do it. He's just got to give back to the industry and start creating the next generation as well. And he can have a huge part in that. There's a lot of people within wrestling, and definitely a lot of AEW and WWE fans who will always have a soft spot for CM Punk. And if he is kind of jaded by the wrestling industry, well, then let's see what he has, what he can offer moving forward, and make people in his mold that he would like to see as hopefully a wrestling fan, if he still is a fan, or if he does just see it as a job. That would be interesting going forward, but he can be part of that change.
Yeah, I would very much. I mean, it's interesting to think there, Andy. I'm not sure I can see, CM Punk in a mentor backstage role, but I would love to see it. I would love to see CM Punk and his wonderful, his great knowledge. Because if there's anything you could say about CM Punk, he's got a knowledge of the business and what works and what doesn't. And it'd be lovely to see him in a role like a Dusty Rhodes style role, which I know is an odd comparison, but something like that for CM Punk would be interesting, if not completely unbelievable. But yeah, some great points there, Andy, and thank you for sharing those. Sam, your points now on what is the best case scenario for CM Punk as he potentially returns to AEW.
I agree with Ryan Davis's comment a moment ago in that if he doesn't come back, he tarnishes everything forever. Worse, like if he doesn't come back and correct his course, then his return, as far as I'm concerned, goes down as the absolute worst and the biggest waste of potential in this entire industry. I honestly believe that, and I will forever mourn it as a fan. So I think the best case scenario now is he and everyone else involved learn to come together and do business. They don't even have to like each other, just do business. That's all you got to do. Oh, and do what your boss says. Don't do what you say. Like, here's the thing with Punk. If he comes back, he's probably instantly going to be, again, the biggest star ever. But here's what he needs to do. He needs to say to the other guys, look, this is your house. This was your vision. You are owed an awful lot of kudos. I don't like you all because I think you're a bunch of cliquey whatever so-and-sos. But there's something special going on here with AEW. Let me help you. Let's all make this better. We don't have to be friends, but let's work together and let's turn this into what we know it can be, because what it's been before, it can be a beacon of hope. It can be a beacon of light. And they all just need to work towards a shared goal and realize that they're not in each other's way. They're a lot stronger together than they all are apart. But we need them all to realize that. And I think the frighteners have been put up them all enough. If it happens again, as far as I'm concerned, I want them all gone from the business, gone forever. Even if it costs the promotion, which it won't. But the best case scenario is they can put aside any animosity, and even if they don't work together, just coexist in the same place. But they need some strong leadership at the top. And I always say this: if Brett and Sean can do it, anyone can. And guess what? Brett and Sean became friends a few decades later. There's hope for everyone, and we all want the same thing, which is that company to succeed and more awesome storytelling and more awesome matches. And if we have a second chance to make that happen, let's grab it by the short and curlies. That's what I think. And that is what I would beg everybody in AEW to try and do, and to not stir the pot. And let's, like we thought last year, we thought, well, we can't have nice things, can we? Maybe we can again. I really want that.
Yeah, me too, and like I say, there have been some beautiful moments, when CM Punk first came back, when Jeff Hardy first came back. So let's hope for more of those. I think there's a wider, question around, again, when Andy first talked about, that it wasn't necessarily all CM Punk's issue, it was, Tony Khan's issue, but that's a wider conversation for another time, maybe another debate video somewhere else down the line where I bring you guys on. We are going to round up now, guys. We're going to do some comments, so I'm going to bring you both back on screen.
Before we go into the comments, can I just chuck a pipe on in just to make things a little bit?
Go for it. I'm going to bring us back on screen. I'm also just going to bring that onto screen.
You found it? Fantastic.
I did find it. There's Andy and CM Punk. Sorry, go on, mate. What were you going for?
I'm impressed you managed to find that. I don't know if it was just during one of our monologues that me and Sam were doing there, but I should have said, "Do I have your attention now?" when you put that up. But basically, I would like to ask you guys, what in CM Punk's history suggests that he can be a team player? Like, can you name me one person that CM Punk has done business for rather than with, other than himself?
I would have said Darby, probably more than anybody else.
I haven't got any.
Came back, even though CM Punk won that feud, I would have said Darby.
FTR. I think FTR agree with us in the sense that there are people backstage who say about Punk, like, if he likes you, he can be a great teacher. Just if he doesn't like you, he's the worst enemy ever. That's the problem. I think like there's a lot of people who do admire him, and but the issue with Punk is he's got this Messiah complex, but he's not the only one who has the Messiah complex. And what Dan just said, Ring of Honor, yeah, exactly. There's a lot to like about this guy, but there's also a lot to not like, which is probably the same. You can say the same thing about me.
There's a bad thing, by the way, because even in the likes of football, you've got people who've got massive ego. Like Ibrahimovic is probably one of the best examples of he has a Messiah complex and backs it up. And more often than not, CM Punk has been able to back it up. But I guess the question will eventually become, and if there is any more issues, is it worth the trouble? And that will be what happens going forward, is like, is the kind of the stuff that the baggage that he brings worth the trouble? And, and ultimately, if the answer is no, then it's time to go, part ways. But Ring of Honor, how long are we going back there? Sorry, it's a long time, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, it's a while ago, yeah. And Dan made another comment about it's about how much money CM Punk makes, I suppose, at the end of the day. And I imagine it makes him a ton of money. So, there's some, again, wider conversations to spring from this. And I'll have a chat with you guys off record about some other questions that have come up from this as a next phase of this chat. So wonderful to have you guys and your opinions in. So thank you so much for dedicating your time this evening. And thank you all so much for your comments. We are going to get a couple of those done now. Sorry, Sam, did you have something to
Sorry, mate. Yeah, one final point. Again, I'm an eternal optimist. If someone does something bad, I'll call you out for it. If you do something good, I'll praise you for it. It's that simple. But here's the thing: people like Shawn Michaels, if they can turn things around and go from a cancerous talent, and they were a talent, to somebody who brings value and goodness to the industry, then anyone can do it. Shawn Michaels, these days, I adore, and he was always brilliant, just like Punk is brilliant. But he was able to and there's a lot of examples in wrestling of people doing that, being an absolute disaster, an absolute nightmare, and seeing the light. And I don't mean that in a religious way. I just mean turning babyface in real life. It can be done. And again, just like I have faith in Jeff Hardy, I have faith in Punk. Unless I'm let down one more time, then it evaporates forever. Sorry, Dom, over to you.
No, some interesting points and interesting comments as well. The reason I said off record that is because I've got a discussion around Tony Khan that I want to have as fans, of course. Obviously, you have a different viewpoint, but some of the points, if you go back and watch the beginning of this when we were talking about Jeff Hardy, some of the points Andy made a very interesting, made my little sort of my little question brain. You can tell it's 2 minutes past midnight. It made my my journalistic brain trigger. I've got a question that I want to ask for maybe the next stream around Tony Khan and Tony Khan's handling of situations like Brawl Out. So let's go up. Let's go up and let's do some comments before we get out of here. And we'll also give Andy the chance to plug things he's been doing, and Sam chance to plug things he's been doing as well at the end. So we've got to give some time to that. Thank you all for your comments. We've had Tom Talks Rubbish in, we've had Emma in. Once again, to give a plug to Tom Talks Rubbish, he did a wonderful interview with Sean Ross Sapp. Go check that out. He's given his thoughts there as well. Interesting question from Mark LFC here that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention. Genuine question: does AEW need Punk to sell out Wembley Stadium, or can they do it without him? Let's have Andy first, and then Sam on that one.
This is going to sound like such a bitchy thing to say. AEW is not selling out Wembley. I'm sorry, it's just not happening. They might sell out what they put on sale, but 90,000. I will eat my words. I'm happy to eat my words. I really do hope that they can get as many as possible. I think he will help sell what I think they will sell, which is about 40 to 50,000. And that will be a phenomenal amount of tickets for AEW to sell for their first ever show in the UK. I think Tony Khan has some massive balls for going so big so quickly. But absolutely, CM Punk will help sell them tickets, because I guarantee you there's WWE fans who have never watched an AEW show in their life in the UK. The minute they find out that CM Punk is there, they will buy a ticket, like guaranteed. They will remember CM Punk from his WWE days, and they will go check it out. And that is nothing but good for AEW, because that show will be amazing, and they'll get fans from the back of it who casually drop in.
Yeah, very interesting points there, Sam. Again, yeah, like just thinking about the psychology of wrestling fans when they see that name pop up. If they've not been a wrestling fan for many years, CM Punk will trigger that for them. And again, it's a great way to get people to buy tickets. But you're the first person that's actually said it, that they won't sell it out. So an interesting point there. Sam, anything to add to that and Mark's question?
Yeah, I'm of the I'm not going to disagree. I don't think they are going to sell it out, but I don't think they need to sell it out either. I think they're going to sell a good chunk, because I think there's a lot of fans. I think a lot of people are coming from international as well. I think they'll do just fine. But what's important really is pay-per-view buys, which is what's always more important in this day and age. What they need to do is just sell enough for it to look good on TV, to look good on Bleacher Report or Fight or wherever the hell it's going to be. That's all they got to do. They don't need to sell it out. So everyone's getting fixated on them selling it out. People like Jericho on Twitter are talking a big game, but that's because they have to. They've got to be the company guys. They've got to be the positive voice, and it's absolutely fine. I no problem with them doing that. But also at the same time, AEW have done their homework. This isn't some tiny little indie promotion. This is a company run by billionaires who've got all the best forecasting, speaking to the people at the stadium, speaking to the events organisers. They've got smart people in the right places who are telling them what they need to know. And you know what they're telling them? Exactly what we're saying here. They're saying you're not going to sell it out, but you're going to do all right, and it's worth doing. And, fast forward, by the time we're there and we're watching it, we'll see empty seats, of course we will, but it won't matter. And everyone's getting so fixated and hung up on, are they going to sell it out? And it's just a moot point. It's a daft conversation. It's going to be a good show. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm already sick of hearing about it. It's only been going on 3 days. I ain't worried about it, boys. I ain't worried.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, great to see that enthusiasm in the wider wrestling world, but interesting to have these conversations again. Something that Tony Khan might have to think about, not selling out that whole place. Tom Talks Rubbish came in and said two different situations, which we highlighted. Very, very crucial to remind people as we go through this, especially if you go back and watch the Jeff Hardy thing. We're not drawing a direct comparison between Jeff Hardy and CM Punk at all. Two very different situations. Jeff Hardy has a disease which needs to get help for, and Punk just seems to be about himself. That's from Tom Talks Rubbish there. We have some other questions here and other points to get through. Emma, which I brought up at the beginning, which is one of the reasons I decided to do this. I feel like if anyone else who had done what he did, and actually this applies to the CM Punk stuff in a way, obviously, again, not drawing a direct comparison between gravity of the situation, but I feel like if anyone else who had done what he did, they wouldn't be able to go back to their job. A lot of kids look up to wrestlers. I loved him when I was younger, but as an adult, I see the potential damage that they can cause. Now, obviously, that was about Jeff Hardy, and I know Scott Warren was in, Scott from Rebellious Noise was echoing the same sentiment, and Dan also commented later on about how, in CM Punk's case, you couldn't go back to that, to the job. I think, but we're not talking about normal jobs, are we? We're talking about entertainment. And we're talking, and I'm not giving that that probably sounds like I'm excusing it, but none of us could go back to our jobs if we did what Jeff Hardy did, and I guarantee probably none of us would go back to our jobs if we tried to knock somebody out, in the office or the kitchen. So there's some interesting points there. Do you think these stars, these superstars, should get a pass? Should be allowed to go back to work immediately? I guess that's a wider conversation again about a union. And, because wrestlers don't have a union. I mean, this is a whole can of worms, and I'm aware of it. But, if a union was in place, would these things happen? And would CM Punk and Jeff Hardy be allowed back to work? I'll simplify that question down. I'm sorry, I'm waffling. Lads, is it different for these people, these celebrities? Do they is it one rule for them and one rule for us? I know this is a big conversation, but we'll go with Andy first and then go to Sam.
Is it different? Yes. Should it be? Probably not. Is the kind of short answer. They get a bit more leeway for whatever reason, whether you agree with it or not. It is a fact of life that they seem to. And let's face it, you've got is Ezra Miller, who plays the Flash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have been all over the news because of discretions that they've made, yet they're still going to release him as a superhero and put him up there. So I don't think this is a wrestling-centric conversation. As you say, it's a wider entertainment thing. There seems to be some different kind of leeway. And the reason, they make money. That's pure and simple what it is. They make money, and as long as they make money, they will be a commodity and valuable to the promotion or the company that they work for. That's as simple as it is for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Sam, anything to add on that one, or you and Andy in sync as usual?
We're in sync. I agree. I think if you're Joe Bloggs who works for Staples or whatever, and you do that, you're done. If you are somebody who works for $1 billion company, sometimes it's enough to say, I'm sorry, I've checked myself into therapy, or I've been to rehab. It's all better now. That's all you got to do. We see it with politicians. We see it with all sorts of people. Yeah, it shouldn't be different, but we all know it is. There are countless examples. I think Ezra Miller's a great example. And even if Warner Brothers have got rid of him, which is something I heard, that movie's still coming out. He's still going to do well, even if they don't bring him back. His bed is made. The table is set. Who cares if they bring him back or not? And they can always just recast the Flash because they're doing Flashpoint in the storyline anyway. So Ezra Miller is laughing his way all the way to the bank. And so is CM Punk, and so is Jeff Hardy. Although I actually think Jeff Hardy and CM Punk are better people. But anyway.
Yeah. I'm certainly not going to compare CM Punk or Jeff Hardy to Ezra Miller. I think there's a couple of nice points from Dan. Showed in Ring of Honor that he couldn't be a professional. This is Dan talking about his own experiences with CM Punk there, and just talking about how you should always be professional. I think we have talked about this. in our respective professions, our professions are very stressful in different ways, and I do agree with that. I think you should always be professional, and I think no matter where you are, whatever celebrity you hold or whatever job you hold, I do agree with that. Wherever possible, if you're having a mental health issue and you're struggling, please do talk to someone as well. I think there's a lovely comment here from Scott. Can't forget about what's happened with Sonny. When I say lovely, I mean in reference to what can be learned. I want to be clear about that too, because it is these things addressed in this comment are difficult, but there's a lesson to be learned from what's happened with Sonny and what's happened with Jay Briscoe and these two examples. I think Scott goes into a bit more detail here about what he means. I hope these two huge wrestling related tragedies do help Jeff and others such as the Usos stay strong when those such demons get close to creeping back up. There are identifiable moments that these wrestlers can learn from, and hopefully they do as well. Lovely. Thank you to Wrestle Story for joining us. Of course, the Wrestle Story hosted WrestleMania while we were gone. Wrestle Story echoing Dan's comments as well about Punk needing to be professional. I think that makes total sense. Absolutely. Let's come down to here. There's a nice comment from the Swerve Show. Welcome to the Swerve Show. I haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you. Punk is a punk. When a person tells you what they are, believe them. That's an interesting one. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, but I like that as a comment. I mean, I guess CM Punk is, he is what he is, and he's never pretended to be anything he isn't, and I suppose that's a good point there. Feel free to at this point, feel free to jump in, guys, if there is a point you want to make as we are summing up.
I'd agree. Sorry, dude. I'd agree and disagree with that comment. CM Punk is a punk. I think CM Punk is a pain in the ass. Do I want him back and see him wrestle people like Kenny Omega? Yeah, I do. Because he's not the first arse who's been in wrestling, and he won't be the last. That's what I think.
Andy, any thoughts on that comment there from Swerve?
Yeah, I agree. So if someone's telling you what they are, then you'd have to be I agree. I think the one about being professional is bang on. But I also would like to point out that also comes from the top, because if your top guy in the business and the owner isn't being professional, then that's going to seep down through as well. So everyone needs to be professional, no matter what title you're in. Which I also would question whether Jeff Hardy is good to be in that kind of environment as well. That's why I say being professional all the way through.
Absolutely. I think that's a nice point to end on. And Dan's comment there about, again, always being professional, no matter what's investing you and what you earn. I would say Swerve doesn't know any punks. Well, we'll again, that's a question for another time when Swerve next comes back. It's been wonderful seeing Swerve in here. Wonderful seeing Dan in here. We've loved seeing you all in here. This could have gone on for hours. This is a wider debate, and hopefully we'll have these lads back. I've been thinking of coming up with a name for us after watching Ted Lasso. Anybody else seen Ted Lasso?
Well, the Diamond Dogs.
The Diamond Dogs, and we would be like the three of us could be the Diamond Dogs or something along those lines. So maybe we'll think of something like that. The Diamond Dogs assemble for wrestling debates. Don't put Jeff in his stunt matches. Thank you guys so much for your time and support. Really appreciate it. Myself and Sam are going to be back for SmackDown. We're gonna have a very special guest that we met met at WrestleMania coming on to hang out with us, which will be interesting. And we're going to have Andy back at some point as well, no doubt, as he's part of the I can't call us the Diamond Dogs. He's part of, he's a Hulkamaniac, and he's on the team. So we're going to have Andy back, absolutely. On that note, though, Andy, what are you doing at the moment, mate? Like, obviously, I know you're on here with us talking about this stuff, but what do you got to promote, man? You've got loads of things going on. Obviously, I imagine you've been doing some kick-ass features across the board. What have you got to plug and promote as we wind down this stream?
I feel like you've just like pitched me like a slow ball there to not only big up myself but also big up Soundsphere and say there's a feature coming. You're like, have you been doing any features? Yeah, you know full well I have been doing a feature.
I love it.
Yeah, there's a Nita Strauss feature coming out for Soundsphere who has some big wrestling ties. So definitely go check that out in the next few days when it goes on. Don will be able to keep you right on that if you go check out Soundsphere. I've been taking a little bit of a break after WrestleMania just to recharge the batteries in terms of writing about wrestling, but there are some things in the works. There's some very exciting projects that I've just started kicking off, which I can't say much about at the moment because very early days, but I'm really excited about it, and it looks if they come off, it could be amazing, and you guys will be there the whole way with me. What I will say is, what I can talk about is next Friday night, 10 p.m.
Oh yeah,
these two gentlemen are going to be joining for something very light-hearted in comparison. WWE has their upcoming draft, so next week the guys from Gimme a Hell Yeah, Sam and Dom here, will be going up against Scott and a partner of his choosing in a draft of our own. We're gonna draft or have our own mini draft. I will explain the rules to these guys so they will know what they're getting into, and like the music tournament that we had, which was kind of sprung upon them very last minute, but they did very well. Where we who did we crown? Limp Bizkit was crown champion.
Limp Bizkit, always Limp Bizkit, man.
Yeah, that was a great discussion, a great couple of hours to spend with some great people who know their stuff about wrestling. And this is going to be no different. I'm really excited for it. These guys are going to take one of Raw or SmackDown, and they're going to draft to say how can, in their opinion, what would they like to see WWE do. They're going to do their draft, and then they're going to kind of book a little bit of a few weeks run up after that as well.
So we're going to book it as well. Holy monkey!
Yeah. So you guys, I'll explain further. You guys who are watching, I really hope you can join us because it is going to be fun. We're going to have a great time, a little bit of a competition between the guys here and Scott Warren from Rebellious Noise, or is it RN Wrestling, I think he goes by. So definitely check that out. That'll be on my YouTube channel before the guys obviously will then head back across to Gimme Hell Yeah to do their SmackDown stream. But yeah, always awesome to join you guys whenever I get the opportunity to.
Oh man, it's a pleasure to have you. And I'm going to post a link to Andy's channel as well, so you can go check that out. As Sam does his plug-in, what have you got for us, mate? What's going on?
I think we've got some stuff on the pipeline for WrestleSphere coming up, haven't we? We can't say anything, but we've been having some conversations with some interesting people recently. We won't say anything, but we're being quiet on that front because we're building in the background. Super exciting. And I think for me, I've been very focused on my day job since I've been back from Mania because I've had a lot of catching up to do. Which is Deserto. We write about games and streamers and entertainment, and we're very good. So there you go. Especially me. Not putting. I put over all the others as well. But
check that out, man. Check that out. Please go and support Andy's wrestling channel, Wrestling Royalty. Go and support Sam over at Deserto. I haven't posted your author page. Maybe I should do that. But we also, while I'm doing that, while I'm finding that, and just so I'm not typing up, what have we got coming up right here on the Give Me a Hell Yeah podcast?
Oh, well, in about 40 minutes, I believe, we're going to be covering SmackDown, and we're going to be covering it live because we can't call it SmackDown Live anymore, can we? No. So we've got Shinsuke Nakamura coming back. We've got Xavier Woods versus LA Knight. We should have a little bit of a. I knew that was coming. Bloody hell, that was all over. All LA. It was just bloody Denny's pancakes and and I can't do it because I don't want to wake up Jess. But yeah, he's doing it. It's it's also, we might have a little bit of a chat about Bray Wyatt because there's a few news reports floating around and anyone can find them. They're all over the internet.
Dom's going to talk about Bray Wyatt.
No, well, I think I might if he can't. But I think there might be some reasons to be cheerful. Apparently, he's not been very well. But we'll discuss it in more detail on SmackDown.
We will.
SmackDown. Bray is a SmackDown dude, isn't he?
He is a SmackDown dude, at least currently until the draft. And once again, go and check out Wrestling Royalty, where me and Sam will be doing the draft next week. And also come back and see us on SmackDown. Andy might make an appearance. Who knows, man? Who knows? SmackDown, less than 40 minutes away, right here on the Give Me a Whole Yeah podcast. We have been debating lots of things about CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. Go back to the start of the video, watch it back again. Let us know what you think in the comments, whether you've been with us during the course of this 1 hour and 20-minute stream or whether you come back to it. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your energy. We appreciate your support. So thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Get ready to count us down, guys, and count us out. We'll see you later. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah, jazz hands. Oh yeah, jazz hands. Well, I'm by the outro. I haven't figured it out yet. What am I gonna do? Mick Foley.
This is the hardcore legend, Mick Foley. Well, hello and welcome to Give Me a Oh Yeah. I hope everyone there, right there in Yorkshire, is having a nice day. Bang, bang. Have a nice day. Yeah.